Hey guys, Chris from Hockey Tutorial here, and today in this video we're going to be taking a look at the brand new HyperLite skates from the Bauer Vapor family and telling you everything about them, everything that you need to know, and showing you what's changed against the previous generation, which was the 2X Pros. Now, before we jump into this video, all of the previous videos that we've been doing, you guys have been doing a phenomenal job of making sure that we get a lot of thumbs up and likes before we even start the video. Let's see if we can keep that going. So before we jump in, thumbs up the video and make sure that you're subscribed and the bell notification is turned on so you're notified when we post a new video. But without further ado, let's jump into this one. So starting off at the base of these skates and working our way upwards as always. When we look at the original 2X Pros, this featured the LS5 carbon. Now this versus traditional steel, it has better edge life or edge retention. It's going to be able to withstand the wear and tear of the game much better. It's an all-round better performing blade with that black coating on it than if it wasn't and it was just traditional stainless steel. Now when we look at what the brand new HyperLite skates feature, from a distance it probably looks like it's the same thing, but this is actually a plastic blade. Now when we look at why that is, if you're in North America and you're picking up your own pair of HyperLite skates, you get them standard with a plastic blade, which of course you're not meant to try and sharpen it, you're not meant to use it on the ice, it's just there for display because you have the option of choosing 3 different types of steel. Now those different choices of steels are the LS Pulse, which is the blade from Bauer that features that mirror-like finish. Now the benefits of that blade, because of that mirror-like finish, that enhanced polishing, it's able to reduce drag and glide through the ice with a lot less effort and less friction. Now the second option from there is going to be the LS Pulse TI, which is the Bauer blade that features the DLC or diamond-like coating. Now this versus black steel is a much more enhanced version of black steel, you could say. With that diamond-like coating or that DLC, it's able to essentially double the life of the runner, and it further extends the ability for it to hold its edge, to withstand the wear and tear of the game. But aside from that, it's also able to withstand chips, cracks, pretty much anything you could put the blade through on the ice. The DLC blade is going to be able to handle it a lot better than previous generations or types of steel. So this is a big upgrade. Now when we look at the third and final option, this is going to be, in my opinion, Bauer's most advanced and best performing runner that I've seen to date, and that's going to be the LS Carbon Light. Now the main feature of this blade is given away in the name, and that's the light part of the name Carbon Light. Essentially what you're getting here is a blade that has 2 different materials to construct it. The bottom of the blade is going to be high-grade stainless steel, like we've seen before, but the top sections of the blade are actually going to be lightweight carbon fiber. Now the reason for this is you're removing a large portion of the blade, or the stainless steel blade, which is very heavy, and replacing it with lightweight carbon fiber. What this saves you in terms of the total weight of the blade is 35%. Now when you remove 35% away from a skate blade, it doesn't sound like it's that significant. But when we look at a traditional skate construction, if you were to dismantle a hockey boot like one of these ones over here into single pieces, the single most heaviest piece of the skate's entire construction is actually the blade, which can come as quite a surprise to a lot of us. That means the tongue, the outsole, all of these other different various pieces are all lighter, significantly lighter than the hockey blade. So by reducing the weight of the skate blade by 35%, you're making a very drastic weight reduction to the entire boot itself. And also, if you think about where the skate blade is positioned, it's at the bottom of the blade, and that's the heaviest point. Removing weight from there is going to make a big difference in how the skate feels and performs on the ice. But as a side note, manufacturing a skate blade with 2 different materials isn't something that we've never seen before. We have seen this before, but it wasn't as big of a hit as I suspect these brand new LS Carbon Light steels are going to be. And one of the reasons for that is because other types of steel where you've had 2 different materials fused together lacked or didn't maintain lateral stiffness as well as this brand new LS Carbon Light. The way that Bauer's been able to achieve this is by adding a stabilizing spine to the carbon fiber section of the skate blade. Now that's going to help to maintain the lateral stiffness of the skate's blade so it's able to perform just like any other one of Bauer's high-end or high-grade runners, except this one is going to be 35% lighter than anything else Bauer has released in current times. Now with the new HyperLite skates having 3 different options of blades that you can select, you can see that Bauer's putting a lot of emphasis on runners or blades in general. The different materials, the different construction methods, the different coatings on the blades, but more importantly it's going to be all about increasing contact with the blade in the ice or adapting it based on what different types of players prefer different types of styles of runners. Now this sounds like it's not a very important subject, but the idea of skate blades not being as critical or even more critical than the skate themselves, in my opinion, just doesn't seem right at all, because when you look at a race car, You could have the craziest car in the world, but if the wheels suck, the performance of the car will suck. Depending on which different surfaces or road conditions that the cars are on, the wheels are switched out. Because essentially that is the piece of the skate that is actually connecting you to the ice, or in other words, the surface that you're performing on. So bear that in mind as we see things changing and evolving from Bauer, and also probably other skate manufacturers as well, because as I always mention it, and I've said it in many other videos when we look at runners in general, they are extremely important for a player's performance, and that also includes sharpening and profiling. It's always nice when you're looking at the base of the skate and we're already seeing big improvements from what we saw previously. But let's continue to move our way up into the holders. Both of these are using the trigger system holder that we've seen from Bauer, the Lightspeed Edge holder. No changes over here. Now, moving on to the outsole of the 2X Pros. This featured a fully composite outsole, nice and stiff with perforations at the bottom to allow any excess heat and moisture to exit the skate. But the fully composite outsole is there to make the point or the connecting point between the holder and the blade and the boot stiff, so any movement that you make from inside the skate is able to be translated onto the blade. So that was stiff to allow for good energy transfer. Now, moving from there, when we look at the outsoles that are featured on the brand new HyperLite skates, this is something completely different that we've never seen. At a glance, you can see that the front portion of the outsole is made from that stiff, fully composite material that we'd expect. But when you work your way into the mid and also the rear of the outsole, we're seeing different materials there, different colors, different textures. So what's happening here? This is referred to as Bauer's brand new HyperFlex outsole. Now, the idea behind this is that the front portion of the outsole features that traditionally stiff composite material. And the reason for that is because this particular area of the skate is the part of the boot that's responsible for being able to allow good energy transfer with the first 5 or 6 explosive strides that you take on the ice. Now, when we look at the rest of the outsole, why is the construction completely changed and why does it feature different materials, different colors? The idea behind this outsole is that it actually flexes roughly about 5% to increase the contact with the blade and the ice. The reason for that is that it's going to benefit the player by providing more power and more speed through crossovers and also strides. This is a completely different construction to what we saw previously with the 2X Pros and also what we see on the ultrasonic skates, which are super stiff for maximum energy transfer. This particular type of skate construction or outsole construction is all about speed, agility, and maneuverability by increasing the contact that the blade has with the ice, even when you're in your strides and crossovers. Massive upgrade over here. And as a side note, the HyperFlex outsole is also going to be another reason why these HyperLites are going to feel distinctively different to the Ultrasonics. But we are going to be making a video where we compare the Ultrasonics to the HyperLites, so stay tuned for that one too. Now from there, moving upwards into the quarter package of both of these skates, we're still seeing Bauer's curved composite over here. One of the differences that I did spot, aside from the massive differences in the design of these skates, is going to be the fact that on the original 2X Pros, the Bauer logo on one side of the skate, the outside of the skate, was stitched on, so that was an extra piece of material stitched onto the side of the boot, whereas the other side was actually sublimated into the material, or the curved composite in this case. But when we look at the HyperLites, the Bauer logoing is sublimated into the construction of the skate's upper as well as on the other side. So both sides of the skates no longer feature a stitched logo on the side. I know that's not really a big deal, but I just thought I'd mention it because I did pick up on that while we were looking at it. But from there, taking a look at the lacing system incorporated on the 2X Pros, this was the injected lacing system that we have seen previously in Bauer's different ranges of skates. But when we looked at the eyelets, one of the big bonuses over here was, aside from them all being one piece, inside the eyelets were little T-like shapes that helped to lock in the laces so you wouldn't get any laces slipping, and you'd only have to really worry about lacing your skates up once, which was a nice feature. A lot of players liked it. Some players preferred the traditional eyelets to these. But when we look at the brand new eyelets featured on the HyperLite skates, this is Bauer's HyperFlex facing. Now what this lacing system has is strategic flex zones in the top 4 eyelets. Now what that's for is, not only does it increase the wrapping that the skate will have around the top of your foot, this new facing system will also add lateral stability and also increase your forward flexion. Essentially, that's going to allow you to flex forward with much more ease. Remember what these skates are targeted at, which is that agility and maneuverability on the ice, and that's exactly what the new lacing system is going to help players to be able to achieve. Aside from that, we're still seeing Bauer's comfort edge at the top or the neck of the skate, so you don't get any cutting or digging into the side of your foot while you're turning tightly, skating aggressively in these skates. We're still going to be seeing Bauer's asymmetrical toe cap with both of these skates over here, so none of those areas have been significantly altered or changed, except for some maybe cosmetical differences that you might spot with the new color schemes on both of these skates. From there, taking a look at the tongues on both of these skates. With the original 2X Pros on my left over here, this featured Bauer's Recoil Pro tongue, which had that molded felt with dual injected metatarsal guards. When we move over onto the HyperLite skates, which feature Bauer's brand new AeroLite tongue. Now, the first thing I've got to mention is when we look at all of the other tongues that we've seen from Bauer skates, they've always traditionally been felt. This new tongue over here is not felt, it's aerofoam, which is something completely different. Aside from it feeling and looking distinctively different from what we've seen previously, it is incredibly lightweight. 15% lighter than the previous generation of tongues that we saw from Bauer skates. It's much easier to flex forward. It still provides essentially the same level of protection, but it's much more comfortable and you're saving a great deal of weight. And based on its construction, I also feel like this particular type of tongue will probably last a little bit longer than what we've seen previously, just based on what the material feels like in your hands. But again, big upgrades, big weight saving or weight reduction on the HyperLite skates versus the 2X Pros. Now, of course, taking a quick look at the tendon guards. When we look at the 2X Pros, the only difference I could tell personally from this tendon versus the tendon that's featured on the HyperLites is the perforations that you can see along the sides of the tendon on the HyperLites. Aside from this, the shape looks pretty much identical. They both, of course, have a bit of flex because this is that agility and maneuverability skate, but those are the only real changes that I've been able to pick up myself. As a side note, buying the HyperLite skates with the plastic insert and then selecting which runner that you want after that is going to be something that happens in North America. When we look at Europe, the HyperLite skates will be sold as standard with the Pulse TI blades from Bauer. When we look at the inside of the skates, moving on to the liners of both of these skates, with the 2X Pros, that featured Bauer's Lock Fit Pro liner with embossed detailing. Essentially, this was an elite level liner that featured those wear pads or those synthetic leather materials in the high wear areas of the skates to help the liners last a little bit longer. But it's what you'd expect from a skate at this level. It has all of the properties and benefits that you'd expect it to have. But what's changed when we VS that against the brand new liners featured on the HyperLite skates? When we move on to the inside of the HyperLite skates, again, we're seeing the AeroLite foam, which is going to be significantly lighter than what we see with the Lock Fit Pro liners. Now, in addition to this, these skates don't feature any memory foam inside them. The HyperLite skates are going to be featuring all AeroLite foam, which is extremely comfortable. It's going to be much lighter, but it's still going to have all of the same properties that you'd expect it to have, with the benefit of it being lighter than what we saw in the previous generation of skates. So as you can see, pretty much the entire construction of the HyperLite skates is geared towards maneuverability, agility, and lightness. And that's exactly what stands out when we go through all of the big changes that we see in the HyperLites versus the 2X Pros. This brings us to the end of the video. A big thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and you're also subscribed so you can stay up to date with all of the videos that we post. A big thank you to Bauer Hockey for making this video possible. Make sure that you're subscribed and that notification bell is turned on because we have a bunch of new videos coming. We're going to be looking at Bauer's 3 different runner options as a separate video, going into much more detail about them. And we're also going to be looking at profiling once more. But if you want more information on profiling, there'll be a link down below in the video description to a video that we filmed previously. But stay tuned for the HyperLites versus the Ultrasonics because that video is coming very soon. Thank you guys and take care till next time.